everyone, and welcome to this morning's important talks. I feel like a teacher when I stand here. I have to get your attention, and we are late, but my name is Camilla Jarlsby. I work in Kristiansand municipality as a director and head of culture and dialogue. The best job in Europe. This morning's session is an important and central part of the main program during the Democracy Week here in Kristiansand. This is a week filled with panel discussions, political conversations, and cultural events, addressing challenges in democracy, human rights, and freedom of speech. These are fundamental rights that most Norwegians and people in Europe take for granted. And most people in this part of the world would assume that we live up to these high standards. Today's talks will challenge our assumptions and bring other perspectives to light. The questions asked is, among others, if the democratic Europe allows all Muslims to participate in society on equal terms, and if the democratic Europe includes all people. This is touchy topics and important conversations. Today's conversations are part of the program called MEET, the Muslim European Empowerment Program, established in 21. MEET is an important initiative to promote interfaith and intra-faith dialogue, empowering key stakeholders to address challenges faced by Muslims, and last but not least, to celebrate the achievements and contributions made. In relation to Muslim communities, MEET seeks to do three things: to promote and build a clear understanding of democratic values and increase the visibility of democratic role models. And we also try to bridge this to what a European Muslim identity is or could be in the 21st century in Europe. And last, we address barriers for Muslim women and address youth empowerment. In relation to the society at large and governments, MEET also seeks to do three things: to promote understanding of Muslim communities, their faith, values and culture, and counteract on negative stereotypes. Further, MEET seeks to promote awareness of the negative effects of Islamophobia and address the lack of coherent strategies to prevent the emergence of Islamophobia and hate speech, both in social media and in the real life. And last, MEET seeks to promote policies to address discrimination and barriers faced by Muslims in education and employment. All these important issues will be discussed today, based on two main topics: women in Islam and the situation for Muslims in Europe. I wish you all an interesting, enlightening, awakening, and empowerment day. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaykum rahmatullahi, barakatuhu. Welcome everybody here. My name is Priya Chalgi and I'm chairing this session for a Muslim woman in Europe, which is for sure a touchy issue in many European countries. First, I will tell you shortly, I am trying to keep my speakers to speak maybe around 7 minutes, that we can let also space for audience to have discussion or questions. Personally, I try to speak very slowly, and we decided with the speakers that they will introduce themselves in the beginning of their speech. The situation what we are talking here, it is the situation and problems faced by the Muslim women in Europe in their own communities and also from the wider society. And what kind of approaches are being taken to promote rights and empowerment of Muslim women in Europe, and how effective are these? So now we can hear from the Muslim women themselves to discuss these issues and bring you some ideas, how they feel, how they think. Personally, I'm from Finland, and I am social counselor as my profession and activist in the Muslim community. Then we have the other panelists here. We have the first one. It is Nahla Heridi from Finland. Introduce herself, and then we have Dr. Abidafra Schraf from Denmark. Edina Husovic from Austria, and Luca Baudelaire from Hungary, in this order. So I welcome now Nahla Heridi to come to the talk.
Okay, now you can hear me. Thank you. Oh my God, thank you. This is fancy. اللهم حلل عقدة من لساني ليفقهوا قولي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaykum everyone. Good morning. I'm Nahla Heridi. I am a librarian. I work at Helsinki City Library in a project called Cultural Diversity and Libraries in Helsinki Western area. I do study cultural management and production. I do talk to you today in behalf of the Finnish Muslim Forum. So today we're going to talk about the Muslim women in Europe. Please bear with me. My talk is probably going to be slightly over the 7 minutes, but yes. So I wanted to start by a quote by an Egyptian poet called Hafiz Ibrahim. He wrote this quote in 1932. In Arabic, it's الأم مدرسة إذا أعددتها أعددت شعبا طيب الأعراق, meaning the mother as a gender of female. If you establish and prepare them, you have prepared a full nation of a good breed. So what is preparation here? Preparation is that you teach her ikhlas, how to behave. You give her the Islamic education and reasoning behind it, because we live in an era and a time where we question everything. And that is why she has to know the reasoning behind it, not only the education. She has to know her rights and responsibilities. And after that comes that academic education, because without all these, this academic education doesn't really do anything. She has to have the understanding of the politics and the Western society. When we talk about understanding of the politics, we are not only talking about the understanding of the politics, but understanding the narrative, understanding the colonization history, and understanding how to claim her own narratives. Hijab. When we are talking about Muslim women, we are usually talking also about hijabis. I would like to give you my own story, my own background here. When I was 9 years old, I went to my mom and I told her that I want to wear a hijab. And my mom told me no. I went to her again when I was 10 years old, and she again told me no. Her reasoning was that I wanted to wear the hijab because I wanted to belong. I didn't want to wear the hijab because of what the hijab was. I didn't want to wear it because of the religious meaning behind it. Because of course I was a kid, I didn't understand the reasoning behind it. And when I was 11, my mom was like, all right, now you're old enough. You understand what hijab is. You do pray your 5 prayers without being pushed, without being told, now you're ready to wear the hijab. In my case, I still wore it because I wanted the belonging, but my mom's teaching here, it also pushed me to that direction, that now when I put it, I don't put it anymore for the belonging. However, why I'm bringing this story to you guys is that we have a lot of Muslim young children, girls, who do wear it because of the belonging, but they don't have the same bringing up that I did. And I'm very fortunate, and alhamdulillah that I had a mother who knew how to do it, but we have many, many girls who don't. And after that, they grow up and they feel restricted instead of feeling empowerment. And that is why we need to teach our children how and why we are wearing hijab. It's not a clothes. When we're talking about hijabs, we cannot talk about discrimination. Of course, we have discrimination against everything and everyone and different groups. However, when we are talking about hijabis, we are talking about a group of people that are very visible. So whenever you have in the society, you have hatred against immigration, it's a hijabi. Against Muslims, it's a hijabi. There is a terrorist attack somewhere, it's a hijabi. That discrimination is not only about, hey, she doesn't get a health care that she deserves, or that working places that she deserves, but it can be even violent attacks. Unfortunately, I'm standing here in front of you, and I'm not telling you this to victimize myself. I'm a survivor of 2 violent attacks at my own job. I was at the public library at customer service when I've been attacked by a customer. And that is why I'm bringing this to you guys, because if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. We cannot fix a problem if we don't talk about it. So we need to know what a hatred in Europe can be at worst. And this happens in Finland. I'm from Finland. Okay, so to lighten the conversation slightly, let's go to Muslim female role models. Do we have female role models in Europe? We do. Do we have representation to bring them up? No, we don't. I want you to remember every single hijabi, teacher, social worker, youth worker, nurse, doctor, whatsoever, they are role models, but we don't bring them up as societies. So what I listed here are people from the history that we all know about. However, I did want to bring your mother. Your mother is brought in a hadith as your right friendship, the best friend you can have is your mother 3 times. And I think that it's not only the best friend, but it is the best role model that one can have. But then we also have Khadija, the first Muslim. We have who was also a businesswoman and a leader. We do Khawla, who did lead. She's a warrior who led wars, and she's a leader. She's a poet. We have Aisha, radiallahu anha, and even though she never had her own kids, I would say that she does have generations of kids, because she taught us all how to do Islam, and we all know that the way we practice Islam is because of Aisha radiallahu anha. Then we have Fatima al-Fihri, the founder of the first university in the world, who established the academic world the way we know it nowadays. So, lastly, I would like you to take your notebooks, laptops, phones, whatever. Write down shortly, what can you do, whether it's locally, on an international level, you decide on what level. What can you do to make this world brighter, to make this Europe have a brighter future? But with that, I leave you, these are the socials of the Finnish Forum Network, and I'm not Weli, these are my socials. Thank you.
At individual level or at like association level?
You can decide. You can decide on which level you want to write it down, and I'm encouraging you to talk about it during the break.
Thank you, Nanda. Now I invite Assalamu from Denmark, so please welcome. Hello.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Abida Ashraf. I am a doctor, I'm a forensic psychiatrist, and work with a lot of people, mainly Muslim, who are insane, usually have schizophrenia, and are criminal as well. We have in Denmark the medium and high-risk facilities where we have like 40 to 50% of Muslim population. So that's what I work with usually. So I see the other side of the bad childhood, bad decisions that lead people into some fates that are not to be described at times. Besides that, I study Islamic psychology, I'm an Islamic psychotherapist, and I work also as a chairperson for Muslimas Fellesfold, which is a civil rights organization. And we also work a lot about hijab and etc. That's the short version. You can read about the bio in our agenda. What I'm going to talk about is women empowerment in general, but I feel like as a doctor, we always work in phases. Which phase is the patient in? And I think empowerment itself has to be put into phases, because without knowing where we are, we don't know where we're going and how far we have come. So I am going to present the way I work in our organization with the women empowerment of Muslims especially, and there are the three phases. First one is in awareness. I think a lot of work for the last few decades has been done in Denmark especially with the awareness, how to get the Muslim woman to be more independent financially, emotionally, it can be culturally, and in society. And I also think that there has been a lot of work regarding education, getting them from homes to getting into colleges, universities, different kind of educational levels. And all that has led to they could be better integrated in the society. And there's some data from Denmark. If you look at this, yeah, we have men here and women are here. This is 2019 data about youngsters between 20 and 29 years old who are getting education. And what we see here, this paragraph is about the ethnic Danish males. This with 55% of them are getting education. About 36 of the men from immigrant parents, they're getting education. If you see at the women's, we see generally women are getting more, the more percentage of the women are in education. They're 41% of ethnic Danish, and immigrant women are 46. So we have reached somewhere with our phase one
tactics of getting women into educational levels, etc. But what I think one should ponder about is the difference between males and the women. That's going to be a problem in the next few decades. And we have to address that as well. Then we have phase 2, which I think we currently are in Denmark. That's about coexistence. Now to be seen in the society. Before, many women, they work cleaning jobs, the office hours were closed, they came, they cleaned, and they went. We didn't see them. We didn't see them working. Now, women, especially with hijab, are everywhere. And we have an ongoing conversation in every field if they should be there with hijab or without hijab. And that is why we have this conversation about hijabis all the time in whole Europe, especially in Denmark. Time to time we discuss if a doctor can wear hijab or not, but at the moment there is a lack of doctors, so I think that would not be a problem, maybe in 13 years. And the women who are are working at the moment, they want to be known and they want to be accepted as they are. But that's the way it is. And as an Islamic therapist, those women who came to me for therapy, they always talk about the struggle of being what they want to be and what others want them to be. And that's not on the level of families, a cultural level, but also on the level of nationality. How the government perceives them, how the media describes them. And they always ask the question, is it worth it? Is my struggle worth it? Mental health and coping strategies are in place or are not. That is also a question because many of them doesn't know who they should go to in order to talk about these kind of struggles. And are there any support system for them? I have seen a lot of women in this phase where they always end up, sometimes they end up taking their hijab off because there's no other alternative. Sometimes they go through with it with all the hardship because this is what they want to do. And they lack support for either the decision they're in. From minorities itself, but also from the Danes itself. So this is the phase I think we are in and we have to be focusing upon, especially the mental health of the Muslim women who are getting empowered. This is a Danish National Integration Council did a study about numbers of integration parameter in 2022, and it said that 22% of the women of ethnic descent are working. 71% of the men are working at the moment. So we are having a lot of well-educated women out there, but they are not in the working system. Why? Because they're struggling. They are not allowed to be at the workplace because of their hijab, or they are not getting the jobs because of the hijab itself. So that's something we have to address in this phase, and we have to do something about these problems that they are having. Then there's the phase 3, on their own terms. If we have been struggling and gone through all the struggle, all the hardships, etc., we will end up in phase 3, which is on their own terms, because the women control the narrative. They have come too far to quit now, so struggling is become a way of living. So bring it on, as we say. They are a role model for others, and I think a place like Meet is one of those places where you meet such kind of role models from different countries that give you hope upon keep going the struggle on and being the role model nationally but also internationally. And I think in phase 3 what's happening is now that it is a good story and not a cliche anymore. It's not about a sad story, a sub story about a woman, but it's more about I came, I get this education, I get this job, I have this leadership qualities on my own. It doesn't have to do with something in my background as being an ethnic minority. And an example of that was that after there was this ban on hijab in France, in public schools, there was a commission in Denmark which decided in summer 2022 that recommending the government to ban the hijab in schools as well. So in 24 hours, we got arranged a whole demonstration about my hijab, my choice, where the whole nation came together on a working day to march from one place to parliament to show that it is my hijab and keep your hands off it. And that can only be done by empowered women, because this was a woman called Ramia Ibn Hassan, who was the primary behind this demonstration, organizing it, and she got the whole nation together. Her slogan was hands off my hijab, our hijabs, and my slogan was my hijab, my voice, my choice, and that's what got us together. There were non-Muslim attending this demonstration. There were men, women with hijab, without hijab, but I personally like this picture with this Danish woman, and I think as the story goes, she's non-Muslim, and what this says is coercion, and there's no freedom in coercion. Because I don't go in for negative social control. It should be something we should, everyone should be working against, but we should also be aware of that are we trying to erase negative social control by imposing negative social control. And I'm ending my presentation, because I only have 7 minutes, by saying that at any given time, in any nation, in any woman you encounter, try to see which of the 3 phases they are in order to help them to reach the next level. But that work doesn't end by reaching phase 3. Those who are in phase 3 also need support to keep going. And I'm ending my presentation with this quote of Yasmin Rahizu, who's also a brilliant speaker. She says, be the moon in somebody's night, be the usual ease in somebody's usual hardship. And I think every time of work we do, whenever we do, however we do, we should be saying to ourselves, is this bringing more hardship or more ease to the person I'm trying to help? But if it's bringing more hardship, then it's not empowerment. Thank you very much.
And I will ask the next one. Next speaker is Edna Husovic from Austria, and she will come introduce herself as well. We have been a little bit over time and we could start late, but we'll try to let the speakers to have time, and I will speak less so they can have also possibility to ask questions.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries of churches and other religious communities, representatives of the different organizations, brothers and sisters in humankind and in Islam, Assalamu alaykum and good morning. First, I would like to thank the organizers of the Democracy Week and the team around Shaukat having us here together for these beautiful 3 days in Kristiansand, where we have the opportunity to meet, to exchange, and to go home with fruitful exchanges, among others. I'm Edina Husovic. I'm the head of office of the Islamic Religious Authority in Austria, and it was established in 1979 as a religious society that is a statutory body under public law, and I have the honor of representing it today here in Norway. We oversee, I would like to just address a few things, what we do, so you have a picture of the authority in Austria. We oversee the Islamic religious instruction in schools. We train religious teachers at the university. We are responsible for the construction and control of mosques and other Islamic institutions in the country. We maintain Islamic cemeteries, and we are responsible for the pastoral care in hospitals, in prisons, and also at the military, at the Austrian military. As Islam in Austria is the largest minority religion in the country, you can imagine that we face a lot of challenges on different levels. And among them, surely questions that are crucial when it comes about Muslim women in Europe. Muslim women today face multiple challenges and discrimination as women, as migrants, and as Muslims. Between adaptation and self-assertion, they seek their place in European societies. But over the past few years, Muslim women have, alhamdulillah, conquered a firm place in European society. Today, they are not only doctors, lawyers, and bankers, but they also play highly visible roles in the public. Individual success stories, which are disseminated in the media and marketed as examples of both successful and integrated and emancipated, they are the ones who made it. For many Muslim women, this means asserting themselves in a society that assigns them a special status or even discriminates against them in several aspects. Muslim women thus had and still have a hard time fighting for their place in Western society. On the one hand, discriminated against by a stereotypical Western view of Islam, and on the other hand, we have possible constraint by family and personal environment shaped by patriarchal values in our families and our communities. While the secular worldview of Western immigration, societies and democracies is inflamed by the headscarf issue and the position of Muslim women in Islam, it is easy to overlook the fact that the gender issue is also much more complex than it might seem in the internal Islamic or Muslim discourse we have. Here we have also several controversies that are perhaps touched upon. The controversy between traditionalism and westernization, between Islamism and secularism, and between feminism and Islamism again. As we have seen, okay, it's, I mean, excuse me. As we have seen in the previous speakers, Muslim women face a lot of challenges and are responding to them. There is a strong movement among Muslim women away from the patriarchal and toward an egalitarian understanding of Islam. This movement is found both in the old, evolved Muslim countries or societies the one or other came from, and in the young Islamic communities of the West. However, it is not only the inner Islamic ideas of women's roles that pose a challenge for Muslim women, but at the same time, it is the Western image of Islam that makes it difficult for us, for Muslim women, to assert themselves in a secular public sphere. Many citizens of the West, but not all, alhamdulillah, God be thanks for that. Many of them generally regard Muslims as fanatical and ready to use violence, and they might be seen as intolerant and having to deal with strong doubts about their capacity for democracy. And the majority are of the opinion that life in a modern Western society is, for a devout Muslim, mutually exclusive. But Islam, as you may already have seen in its dual function of belief and order of life, can provide orientation with regard to the competing cultural values of its own and those of the society Muslims live in, and set the standards for interpersonal behavior. As I said, we are facing multiple challenges. We are confronted with the prejudices of the majority society. We are possibly burdened by our family migration history. We are restricted by a traditional reading of the Sharia and rejected by the Western feminist movement. And we still seek our place in the European society between participation and self-assertion. We have to claim our right for existence as women that are committed and that are maybe pious individuals and that are citizens both within and beyond the contours of domestic space and of the ethnic or faith community which we belong. And as we are a heterogeneous group, we have to deal with those multiple challenges of diverse intensity and different levels, nowadays especially perceivable in the labor market. And I would like just to address a few points regarding the labor market and the Muslim women in Austria and a little bit in general in Europe. We have been monitoring that in Austria regarding the labor market and Muslim women. It goes hand in hand with a European report from 2014-2015, and it's based on 8 national reports from Belgium, from Germany, from Denmark, from France, and from Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. And the following key findings are this. No, sorry. Just easier for you to have it on the screen. Muslim women suffer from the same inequalities as other women do, like access to employment, gender pay gap, domestic, verbal, and physical violence. But additional factors are as well like the perceived religion or ethnicity that worsen the situation. The media and the public opinion often expresses stereotypical views of Muslim women that are often depicted through a binary representation of being oppressed or of being dangerous, and do not consider Muslim women as active agents in the society. News stories either refer to violation of women's rights or use the image, especially when wearing religious clothing, to illustrate views framing Islam as a problem. And in the labor market, Muslim women are subject to 3 types of penalties: gender penalties, ethnic penalties, and religious penalties. So discrimination is also getting worse related to the perception of the Muslimness of a woman that has reached out to the labor market. And I would like just to close my speak, the Islamic Religious Authority, within our possibilities and aims, we have established a so-called Department for Equal Treatment and the Advancement of Women, and it serves to address gender-specific aspects within the Islamic religious community and the society as a whole, as well as to provide advice and support for Muslim women when they need it, and to address either it be economical or either it be social problems and challenges that they face. It is a place of self-empowerment for Muslim women and the promotion of equal access to Islamic institutions, as well as the equal participation in the shaping, in organizing and leadership of the Muslim community in the country. It works as a collective consisting of women and their male allies, independent of the affiliation or ethnic backgrounds they have or institution they represent. So we are trying to be able to put on ideas and contributions to all members of our Islamic community in Austria, and that men and women are equally appreciated and respected. I just wanted to thank you again, and I will stop here so we can talk together after our event. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And our next speaker it is Luca Bodole from Hungary. Welcome to tell your issues from Hungary.
Welcome everyone. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm really glad that I have a chance to represent some of the Muslim community that is often forgotten and isn't talked about. Most of the time, when we talk about our communities as we get together in a conference or at a training related to Muslim issues, we speak about the Western situation, and there are very few leaders that come to represent the eastern part of Europe. And based on our history and based on our political history and the political climate at the moment, our situation is very different. So it's really important to understand what it means to be not only a Muslim in Europe, but a Muslim in Eastern Europe. And I also want to talk about convert Muslims and their situation. So first I want to talk to you about the fact that, as I'm sure many of you know, Eastern Europe has come out of a history of communism only in the late 90s. So we had less time to develop politically, socially, and economically, and this affects the Muslim communities as well. So when we compare the West to the East, obviously, after the Second World War, the West had more time to build, whereas our societies are still at a stage that's slightly behind. So every society and the way that they treat Muslims depends on what they have gone through. If there are any historical traumas that they have been through, for example, the effects of communism, the number of Muslims that they have in the country, and how many generations of Muslims exist in that country. It also depends on any legal policies that that country might have. Are minorities and are Muslims being protected? Are their rights being protected? Their inalienable human rights. And what's the awareness in society regarding Muslims? And this is a huge question, and other sisters have already spoke about that. And it also depends, I think, the awareness depends on the quality of the education that they receive. Because in some societies, there's more awareness, and in the education system, for example, in the UK, you will learn about different religions. So even if you don't have a close friend who is Hindu or Muslim, but you will have a certain level of awareness about those faiths and people who belong to those faiths. And in Eastern Europe, as I already mentioned, our past really influences us. And on top of that, as I say, it's not only about the political change, but it's about social change. And that affects, for example, the education system. That affects the attitude of people. Why is education so important? Because if you live in a society that's still very stressed, still very stressed out about so many things that are going on, and all of the ways that, for example, communism affected the everyday person, then that means that a young person growing up, they'll feel less empowered and more, they feel more like they have to follow what society tells them to do. Rather than being themselves, they try to assimilate as much as possible and try to be, sort of, as women, the good girl, and just follow exactly what the patriarchy says. Other than that, there are, on the family level, many problems. So I talked about traumas, and we have to talk about these things. Families in countries where communism was present for such a long time will suffer from many different things. For example, there are high levels of alcoholism, and a lot of people being treated for that in some of the Eastern European countries. And this will affect the individual. And I do want to bring this up because a lot of the time in the West, the communities that are being mentioned are ethnically Muslim or come from those countries where you have your parents, your grandparents who are Muslims, but in the East we have a lot of converted Muslims, and their issues are very, very different because their families are not there to support them. So while you go out in society and you struggle with hijab as a woman, but you go home and you see my sister's doing the same, my mother's doing the same, my aunties, my grandparents. As a convert Muslim, you go home and your family is also telling you to take off the hijab. They're also telling you that the thing that's most important to you, which is your faith, or for many Muslims, it is their main identity. It's a struggle even within the family sphere. And then other issue that women have brought up to me as well is that they don't feel safe to go to the authorities. If anything happens, they don't think that they will help them. They're not necessarily they're not confident in the fact that if they speak up about their rights, there will be somebody who will stand up for them. Or they're even afraid that if they go to the authorities, they will be further mistreated because they are Muslim. So this is data from 2016. And what's important to note as well is that, especially in Eastern Europe, after the beginning of the migrant crisis all the way up to COVID, Muslims faced a lot more discrimination and hate crimes because all women are targeted, many people wear the scarf, so ultimately a migrant, a Muslim, an Arab, and unfortunately many people have very bad opinions about all these different minority groups. So you can see here on this map some of the data regards to, for example, Hungary being found the highest as having negative views on Muslims, 72% of people who took part in the research. And you can also see that at this time in 2016, Italy, Poland, and Greece also had quite a lot of issues. So the migration, so now I want to talk to you about the country that I live in. I live in Hungary. And my apologies, I forgot to do the introduction part. I actually lead a Muslim Sisters community in Budapest, but I also had the privilege of growing up in England, so I tend to find myself as a little bit of a bridge between the West, the East, the born Muslims, the convert Muslims. It's quite interesting. And in Hungary, the migrant crisis affected us a lot, so I actually moved back to Budapest at that time. So growing up, alhamdulillah, thank God, I didn't have any issues with being Muslims because in England it was normal, nobody cared that I wore a hijab. And it was completely up to me to be whoever I wanted to be. I could be as religious as I want or be as non-religious as I want because everybody else is not Muslim. I mean, where I grew up, at least in my city. So, but in Hungary, many people had a really bad view about Muslims. And here's where it's so important to have your rights protected and have these discussions. Because in a country where the government is also unaware or isn't really talking about the agendas that we've been trying to talk about during these days, what you find is a lot of propaganda used to instill fear in people so that you as a government can become a kind of hero-like figure. I will save you from the bad migrants, kind of a narrative, which is really dangerous because even though there were so many concerns about different ethnic and cultural people coming into the West, and every country had its own debates, but in Hungary is a homogeneous society. Mostly people are Hungarian, mostly people are Christian or atheist. They were very concerned about, the Muslims will take over our country or Arabs will take over our country. So there was a lot of propaganda, and I just wanted to share with you that the main narratives that the government tried to use to get people to fear migrants was that they blamed terror attacks on migrants. They claimed that all of them were illegal, that they're coming in such large numbers and all wanting to stay in Hungary, which was not the case because most people are going to the West. And they also blamed the higher rate of sexual abuse against women on migrants. But there was actually also counter propaganda on the side of another party, and they tried to bring awareness to the Hungarian nation that when you see certain messages repeated to you, they might seem true, but it's not necessarily the case, and trying to get people to think themselves and trying to empower people to think themselves, which is really important. So when we try to understand the West, it's not about the fact that when we try to understand the East, it's not that people in the Eastern countries or in Hungary are bad people. They're really nice people, just like you and me. It's just that they didn't have the education or they didn't have the awareness about our minorities. They don't know. They simply don't know. So when you meet for the first time as a woman in a scarf somebody, and they actually willing to have a conversation with you, they're like, oh, you're so nice. You know, they realize you're just as human as they are. You're also studying or working, a parent. You're also, have issues with you missed your bus or anything random. And you are humanized, and that's so important. I hope I'm not running over time. In Hungary, by the way, we have about 30 to 15,000 Muslims, so it's a very small population. But we do have certain communities, certain regions that have a higher number. And we do have a few mosques across the country and a couple of communities, but our population consists of converts and also consists of many people who've come from other countries to work or study in Hungary. There are two major organizations, the Organizations of Muslims in Hungary and the Hungarian Islamic Community, or Society. And they do a lot of outreach work as well, usually during for example, the Ukrainian crisis. They organized to collect food, and even one of our mosques, we housed a few hundred Ukrainians for a short period of time as they were traveling through Hungary, which was really interesting because in our mosque, even though it's the biggest one in Hungary, we already have the prayer areas. But we just made room, So there is that going on. But the main agenda for these communities, because they're so small and because they lack the capacity, is just to provide that space where you can feel safe, where you can come to pray, to talk about what's important to you, to educate children in Saturday schools, and to celebrate Ramadan together, to have iftars together, to celebrate Eid together, all of those things. Provide services like marriage or funeral services. And these are important to us, right? But these communities don't have the capacity to be, for example, politically active. So why I wanted to talk about the East today is because many times, as a young Muslim myself, I go to different events and take part in amazing trainings, and it's so great to be part of that. And I learn so much. But what I wish that I could see is a gap between where the East is at and where the West is. Because our societies, we need to learn from the Western societies so that we can evolve and grow as well. And so we need to be able to reach out to the communities that are less developed if we're a more developed society and help those communities grow as well. Convert women have specific issues, and this is not just in the East. And I promise this is the last part. So I already mentioned that, well, as a Muslim woman who converts to Islam, you choose your faith. You choose to be a Muslim. But it doesn't really stop there. So that's just the individual level. And on an individual level, you're constantly learning. So there may be questions that you have that you don't understand. I mean, there are questions that you might have as an adult who's been a Muslim for decades, and you still have to talk and ask, at least, ask your local imam or sheikh about that question because you don't know how to answer it. And imagine somebody comes to Islam at any age. I've met so many Muslims in Hungary who are 13, 14, 15-year-old. They came to Islam themselves as a teenager. So imagine there are converts who are teenagers or adults who have their husbands, or for example, in the case of women, and their families are not Muslim. So the cultural difference, the difference in values, all of a sudden you're not celebrating the same things. All of a sudden there's so many things as a family that you used to do together that you no longer do. And on top of that, you're not only having to suddenly deal with social pressure. Why are you a Muslim? Why would you do this to yourself? Or because of all the misconceptions, but you also have to deal with your family, that they are not going to all of a sudden be super supportive of the fact that you've become Muslim, because they think that it's something really bad, that is dangerous for you. So the convert Muslims are in dire need of the support of all of our Muslim communities, to be there for them and to help them and support them. And sometimes that one conversation that you have with a convert Muslim, with a convert brother or sister, can really help them, motivate them. And at the same time, in their everyday life, you cannot be there for them, but at least when you get to meet and talk, and just even having a time where you invite them to your home for iftar, or you go out and you play your favorite sport together, it's something that can be very useful. So, yes, so the convert Muslims will face many different challenges, and it can feel very isolating to be sort of attacked from your family and the society. You are in the middle and you're stuck. Convert women are even more vulnerable, because imagine, especially once somebody makes the decision to put the hijab on, you'll become a target. So you're having to all of a sudden answer so many questions as well about your religion that you might not have a very deep knowledge about yet, because you're also starting your journey. So that can make it difficult. It can also make it difficult that sometimes the Muslim communities are not developed enough to be able to answer questions related to problems in the West. If they are led by leaders who are only aware of the cultures in other countries and not the Western countries, there can be a bit of a gap there. So having lectures, giving lectures to women about how to be the best wives possible is amazing, and it's a great value in Islam. But we also need to deal with what happens if you have converted. What happens if you're a single mother? What happens in an event where I wear hijab now? I have my children that I need to take care of and work, and it's hard for me. And maybe I don't have a husband to support me. Or maybe, as a Muslim convert, I don't have my family to support me. Or maybe, just in general, I don't have my father, he passed away, or he's not in the picture, or my mother. You never know the situation people are in. And can the rights of the Muslim community be protected? Can the rights of these women also be protected? Because sometimes it's a government thing, it's just not in place, or the minorities are not considered as much. And at the same time, the Muslim community is not able to, at least in the East in many cases, stand up for a Muslim person and help them. They don't have the space, or they don't have even sometimes the professionals to help. So that can be an issue. And of course, I think the main issue that I see with many women, especially with converts, is related to marriage. Nowadays, many people, because if they live in a society in an Eastern country that has a very small Muslim community, of course they will seek to get married outside of that country. So you're meeting people online. Then we come into the issues that any woman can face, which is online dating, and who are you really meeting? Can you trust this person? And there are many dangers out there for women, and especially if somebody is converted and they don't have the awareness yet about marriage in Islam, they can get into situations where they get married to somebody who is actually dangerous. They can get into situations where they get married to someone and they didn't fully understand what they were doing, so they get a divorce after a few months. So these are real problems that potentially need to be addressed, or we have to be aware of them to be able to support the Muslims. But I want to end on a positive note. Sorry, can I just say one more thing? Sorry. I just want to end on a quick positive note that in Hungary we do have few communities. So if you're an international Muslim, for example, we have Muslim Sisters of Budapest for women, but also we have NGOs such as Mirador who provide events for international people to try to bring them together and empower them. And thank you so much for your time.
Questions if you have in mind. Here, one. Okay, please.
Thank you. so much for speeches. My name is Vali Ghanem. I'm from Sweden. I work for Islam Academy. Just two thoughts that arose when listening to the speakers. One of them, which is most important, and I will perhaps keep to one since we don't have much time. Since Islam is a holistic religion and it prepares room for empowerment of Muslim women within its realms, I'm just thinking, it's really important to be aware of this and to not get lost in thinking that we need to go outside of Islam to find empowerment. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting inspiration from other kinds of experiences and ideas, but I'm lacking that kind of comment or yeah, thanks.
Thank you. This is actually a very good question. So I will start from maybe Olina. You can start. Yeah. Now I give it to you.
Well, I totally agree with you that if we are following the teachings of Islam, we don't need to find empowerment from outside. We have it from inside. But the situation today is that we are cultural Muslims. Many of our Muslim sisters and brothers doesn't have Islamic education. They don't know the theology, the faith, or the spirituality of Islam, the whole psychology of it. So I think sometimes you have to find it not outside, but to see it in another way, to convey it in another way. And that's very important. And we have to look within. We are not having those glory days of golden ages of scientific discoveries or something. We are, in global sense, Muslim countries where literacy, labor work, etc., we are far behind from the progress that's happening in today's world. And it's also on Islamic level. So I think that we have to readdress things and convey it in another matter. But I think we are rich in our culture, in our literature, and we can find a lot of things within ourselves. And that's why my quote in the ending was inspired from Yasmin Mubarak, was from, which I know she has been inspired from Quran itself. And that's why I ended with it, because it's very important to have our heritage with us. I hope it's answering your question.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
I think my mic is
Yeah.
Is it? I think.
Okay, I'll take this one.
I would like to add to what he's just said, that when we're talking about empowerment, we usually have that wide kind of understanding of empowerment, and we forget that I did briefly mention the colonization history in my presentation, and this is what I mean by colonization history, because when we are taking things out of context and talking about empowerment, we don't think that the Quran actually came to empower the women, but we think about the Western kind of thinking of what is empowerment, and we kind of like take it out of the Islamic values. But we have so many examples of empowered women, and how many, like all the female leaders and ladies that I did mention in my presentation, they are from the beginning of the Islam, and they are very big role models about how big leaders the Muslim women can be. So I don't think that we need another inspiration really from outside. I think we need to go back to our roots and our own understanding of Islam and the history of Islam and Hadith.
I may say here, the challenge, especially in the Western and Eastern, I think we are more in Finland more near the Eastern European model than the Western European model, but the challenge is that the outsider is looking the freedom and empowering women the way what Nana told, and I actually think that we need to be strong
empowered women as we are, but we have to lead the way also for the other women who are not maybe empowered as much, to be able to be brave, to stand up, and to not to say that, oh, because like we look about we are all professional in our field, but it's kind of looked in many countries that to be a Muslim and to be a professional, it's like Muslim cannot be professional. So we should lead the way, we should be brave and be leaders and be making the road for the other generations and other women. So you want to say?
Thank you for your question. I think that every community, be it like a social community or a religious community, should be self-conscious and self-confident, and I agree totally with every one of you. But I think it's nothing bad in solidarity between our groups in the societies we live in, to support each other and to have allies in things that are basic human values, religious freedom, and so on. So it's just like solidarity in things we should, as a community, strive to achieve and to optimize it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think from a practical perspective, because I totally agree with everything you said. So, for example, in the community that I'm leading at the moment, I think what I've seen, which has been so empowering for many women, and the women in my community come from all over the world, is that we make space to come together as a female society and talk about issues and have halakas about Khadija and anything. So it's empowering women because even just creating that space to come together for an event where you just eat food and talk, you meet professionals in all walks of life, and you inspire other people to follow what they wish to follow and not feel like they cannot do it because they're wearing hijab.
I think, I don't know, I didn't see no other hand. There is one hand, short question and two, okay. There is three, but now do you want me to continue a little bit over, because we are supposed to have break 10:30? We did start late, so we can take your question. And I wish short answers, or maybe somebody you can choose that which one. Maybe I think you can all answer the similar issues, so you choose one of the person to answer.
Thank you so much. My name is Mohammed, and I am from Iceland. So consider yourself lucky you're meeting a Mohammed in Iceland. That's a very good thing. But I just want to thank you all for a great talk. I just want to share, it's another question, it's actually to share with you that I think that you as speakers and very influential people can bring with you, and that is, I'm born in Denmark, and I came to Iceland in 2013. My wife is born in Denmark as well. She's living with me in Iceland, and she's a teacher. And usually when we see hate, and when I saw hate before moving to Iceland, it was always something related to racism and political issues and so on. I just want to notify that hate is not something that you're born with. You all know that. Hate is when you go inside a dark room, not knowing what's around you, or you brighten up by turning on the light, and you are turning on the light for people. In Iceland, what we have experienced is that people are extremely curious. When they see my wife in hijab, they are staring at her, looking at her, asking her all kinds of questions, but it's not with hate. They do it by pure curiosity, whereas in Denmark, it's totally different. It's an ask of religion, it's a question of, equality and those kind of stuff that politics and so on has been, put into people's mind. Iceland is a third example. We have the example of East, we have the example of West, and then we have an example of Iceland, which is a country. When I came to 2014, there was so few Muslims. When I saw a Muslim, I almost cried of happiness. Like Assalamu, I was like an old woman with hijab. I didn't want to run to her and hug her. But I smiled at her, and she didn't even notice me anyway. But alhamdulillah, now we have a lot of Muslims now, and Iceland is extremely curious. So what I'm trying to say is that there's also a third way of asking into people. My wife gets a bunch of questions and we are just laughing at it because they're just naive and pure, the way they're asking. So I just want to share that with you. There's a third world, that's the world where people get to see Muslims for the very first time. Questions are not always hate. They want to know about people. And yeah, just brighten up people's mind. That is what the world needs, really. So, isn't it? Some people need to take with you.
I think we all experience this one. I'm also from Finland, so it's not most of the time it's not hate. Please,
Assalamu alaykum, barakatuhu from Sweden. I have a question connected to Valen's question a bit, and that's we very often see when we speak about the empowerment of women, the criterions that are set up are very often very materialistic and secular. Of progress of women, its employment, its salaries, its leadership position, and all these things are relevant in our lives. But have you worked on any other kind of criterions of empowerment of women that are more spiritual, more in resonance with Islamic core, so to speak, not just speaking about these materialistic aspects, to make it more holistic?
thank you very much. This is good. Anyone who wants to answer this question? No?
Well, in my presentation, I actually did say that before the academic education, we should start by teaching our girls, the class, our daughters and sisters. We need to taught them the class. Without the class, there is nothing else. So we start by a class, we then go to the Islamic education, and the reasoning behind it. Anything that we have a reason for, we give them the reason. Because if we don't have that kind of basement, we have nothing to build on. So I put it in that way.
I think we have not that much of time, and we have still one question from Navid. Yeah, you can take. Okay, it's okay. No, he said. Okay, you the last, and then I kind of sum up because I know everybody wants also coffee.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is May Samhouri, and I'm representing Sweden, Scania, Skåne, Association, Cultural Association. My question actually is related to what you have represented, and you are really outstanding, all of you. Thank you. And it is also related to my own life experience. Is it that you have been confronted with situations where you need to kind of defend the men related to you? So, for example, when I'm walking in the village where I live, I feel that people look at me and then look at my husband, who used to be bearded, had a little bit of beard, looking at him accusing, and looking at me pitying, like, oh, the poor things, the poor oppressed thing. And actually, this very specific thing leads me all the time to ask for curiosity questions. So please go ahead and ask, instead of just looking at us as condemning us, and condemning my man, my husband. Actually, he of course, he didn't choose he didn't make me wear hijab since I chose to wear it when I was 13, so it was way before I met him. But actually, this is something that happened to me, but I want to notice in Sweden it happens with a lot of men who have hijab women, girls, daughters, or etc. So this specific question. And one short question: do you have, Nahla, maybe, do you have kind of online workshops or courses about this kind of ikhlas and these steps? It is really something I do believe that we all Muslim women all over Europe would need to, even those of us who are not mothers, we need to have this kind of knowledge.
Thank you, May. So,
I'll quickly answer on my part of question. I haven't been doing anything like that, but I am a public speaker as like freelancer, so I could easily do something like that. We can work it out, so let's stay in touch. However, I don't have anything to answer the first question, so yeah.
And regarding your last question about online teaching the Ikhlas, we do that in Denmark, so you can get in touch and I can, it is Danish, so you can understand that. Regarding the defense of the men, I think it goes with the territory. When you discuss hijab, why you're wearing it, it always comes back to what does your father say, mother say, what would they say if you took it off, or is it acceptable in your family that someone else doesn't wear hijab? So I think it's a part of the deal. And it doesn't irritate me anymore. I mean, it's just like, this is what it is, and take it as it is. So I think we have to also be able to say that this is the going to be, and these are the questions, and we just answer them as well as we can. But that's the reality of it. And people can believe or not believe, that's up to them.
Thank you. So I will maybe sum up now that we can have coffee. First thing first, I will say that everybody come back 10:50 for the next session. Shortly, I will sum up this one. As we see, Muslim women are facing different challenges in different parts of the European countries. Pressure from the society, being certain kind of, what kind of Muslim is good Muslim, and being also from own community, having pressure, how to behave, how we empower women, how we can become like all women empowered, even we are acting in our societies or we are acting in the outer society, because we need people in both places. We need people to act also out of the Islamic society, behaving Islamically, doing things Islamically, showing up that we are here, we have rights, similar rights as everybody in the society. We are not less, and we have to, the important issue, I do think that we are living still in democratic countries, and we have right also to put our own narrative up, to show what we are. You know, when there is a prayer time, we can say that let's go to pray, it's prayer time. We don't need to be ashamed of our religion because it's not forbidden in Europe. We are allowed to practice our religion. So this is one of the issues also, especially when you look at the Muslim women, we are visible in European level. Whether we are, I'm not saying only because of hijab or something, but Muslims who practice their religion, whether hijab is or non-hijab is, when they say that when there is prayer time, I'll go to pray. I do not eat, I want my religion to be respected in a way. So this is one of the important issues we have to fight. Political leaders also need, this is the most biggest struggle in European level, the political leaders, because they are many times Islamophobic, and their narrative it is against our visible showing in the society. So I do think that we have to show we are professionals, we are good citizens, we are part of these societies, and we are also productive part of the society. So this is one we have to work as a Muslim society, but together with everybody, as what we would say. So thank you very much for participating. Thank you, Christian Fund and everybody. This was really good, and shout out there also for bringing us all together here. So this is really nice, and team of course.